Hello nieces, hello nephews, it's your Uncle Charles here and welcome back to my YouTube channel where we do unbiased price action analysis. So both showed some follow through today. Last Friday we had the cancel of the double top, the cancelization of the double top when SPY closed above the July high, and it gave us some follow through. It did not break down that 459.5ish level. You guys can see on this 15-minute chart. This is the green line at 459.5, July's high. It bounced in pre-market and it bounced during the trading hours at the open. And as you guys can see, it gave us a melt up higher, going as high as 462.17 intraday. Both gave us some follow through. Personally, I did not trade the SPY. I'm going to wait for CPI and FOMC. I just traded the Tesla and NVDA, which paid pretty well. I wrote for Tesla here. I have first support at 242.5 and 241, and resistance at 244 and 245.5. We don't look to predict here on Uncle Charles' channel. We just play the setups, breakdown of support. We look to short, breakout of resistance. We look to long. And when the breakdown happened, 242.5 breakdown here, I alerted in the group for Tesla. You guys can see, had a beautiful breakdown right there. Boom. That blue line, that was my 242.5 level, broke it down. Tesla even retested that level as resistant, confirming the breakdown and then heading lower, bouncing off my 237.5ish level. As far as NVDA go, it was a beautiful move to the downside. I have NVDA its own room, and I wrote I have first support at 476 and 474. If they fail, look to short. And oh my goodness, look at that beautiful breakdown of 476, 474, breakdown 475. It broke down 472.5ish. I had a bunch of support that it just broke down and just, wow, just a beautiful move to the downside. And I hope you guys were able to catch some of these moves. But as far as the SPY went, it was a slow melt up type of day. A little underwhelming, but overall the bulls did show follow through and defended the breakout, guys. It defended the breakout. However, we have CPI tomorrow. We have to talk about this, guys. We have CPI tomorrow. And this is very important because the last CPI, guys, the last CPI, we had a breakaway gap. Remember, we had that trend line from July high connecting to September 1st high. And then we had a breakaway gap when we have a structure like this. And instead of giving us a traditional breakout, the market just gapped above it. That's a breakaway gap. And I mentioned in that, when I covered it in that video, November 14th video, I mentioned to you guys that's bullish. And the only way this breakaway gap would have been canceled is if it broke down the 446 level. You guys can see that it aged pretty well. Now, guys, a lot of people have been trying to call tops and bottoms, especially been trying to call tops lately, guys. Gotta be careful with that. With CPI tomorrow, we gotta watch how the market reacts, okay? Obviously, we want to know if inflation's going higher or if it's dropping, and it will affect us. But as traders, we want to see what the market's reaction to it, okay? Now, that brings me back to calling tops, okay? There's only 3 situations where you want to call a top, all right? A false breakout setup, all right? That's one situation where you could possibly call a top when we clear a level and we break it down. So that takes me to my bear case. We cleared the July high, remember, and we show a little bit of follow through, but bulls aren't safe yet. So if we break back below 459.4, false breakout setup from a critical level. I don't blame you guys if you was to call a top in that situation. Another time you would want to call a top is when you identify critical levels. Like I zoom out here, right? You guys can see this rising wedge or this bear flag pattern that I have here. It's pretty massive. And we only have 2 tests of the resistance line and 2 tests of support line. Now I'm tracking it. And it's usually a 3rd test, right? So if it goes for that 3rd test all the way up to 471.3-ish and somebody decide, you know what, I think that could be a top. That is pretty reasonable. I still wouldn't call a top there unless there's confirmation. But if you was to try to short there and call a top, that would be pretty reasonable based on this, this pattern. That's so false breakout, you call a top. When we hit critical resistance levels, you can try to call a top. You still got to make sure you manage your risk and have a stop loss. And a third situation we want to call a top is when we get an exhaustion gap. Okay, and with CPI tomorrow, we gotta watch for an exhaustion gap, because if the market doesn't like what the data came out and it starts pushing down pre-market, by the time it opens trading hours, it would be looking like an exhaustion gap. Okay, remember, look at this exhaustion gap that we had back in August 1st to August 2nd. All right, we was on a very, very strong uptrend from March 13th low, and we pushed up in one of the craziest uptrend ever, and it ended with an exhaustion gap. So if you're gonna call a top, like I say, wait for the right situation. Calling a top at a critical resistance level, false breakout setup, or an exhaustion gap, that's reasonable. It's not guaranteed the market will work out in your favor, but it at least increases the odds of you being right. Do you want to be right? Do you want to look cool in front of all your friends, your trading friends, and everyone gonna think you're the coolest ever? Well, listen to what Uncle Chad is saying. I want you to be cool, man. I want you to be cool. You don't even have to give me credit for helping you to be cool. I just want you to be cool and learn these concepts. Learning the concepts was most important to me, that people learn these concepts. All right. So now that you guys know Uncle Chad's thoughts on calling tops and when the best time is, like I say, watch for CPI. We got an exhaustion gap. I mean, not an exhaustion gap, a breakaway gap, a bullish breakaway gap the last time we had CPI. So watch out if the market gaps down. If the market reacts negatively, that will be an exhaustion gap. That will be a time to get bearish. Or if the market breaks down 459.44, that would be a false breakout setup. And this, these last 2 days of breakout in today's market price action could have been just a stop loss hunting by the market makers, and then they want to push it lower, but it has to break down 459.44 to confirm that. All right. So watch out for an exhaustion gap to the downside to be bearish, and watch for a false breakout setup, a breakdown 459.44 to be bearish. Otherwise, stay bullish as long as above 459.44. Okay. Hopefully you guys didn't turn away. People usually turn away. They only hear one part and then they turn away. So hopefully you guys will listen to my bull case as well, because as long as above 459.4 to the 460 zone, we are bullish here. We should stay bullish on the SPY, all right? And if it can get above 462, that will, put more upside in play. Remember, the top of my bear flag or rising wedge here, whatever you guys want to call it, it's all the way up at 471.3-ish. Okay, so if we stay above 459.5 and we can clear 462 tomorrow, whether it's a traditional breakout or another gap up, that's bullish, guys. All right, that's bullish. So as of right now, is there any reason, just looking at the chart, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but looking at this chart, is there any reason to be bearish right now? Did we get an exhaustion gap? No. Did we get a false breakout setup? No. Are we at a critical resistant level? Not yet. Okay. Now, yeah. Just keep something. Oh yeah. Look at this. Look at this. All right. Something to watch out for. Because the reason I had this 462 level is a pivot high from March 29, 2022. Okay. Let me change the color here. All right. Oh snap. And we tested that level again. So you see what happened last year when it hit 462. Very, very strong selling pressure that led to the downside. Okay. And once again, we hit 462-ish. All right. Ooh, this could be a beautiful double top, guys. But you're going to need CPI's help. If CPI coming with an exhaustion gap and gap the SPY down, we want to get bearish. But overall, to be bullish, stay above 459.5. And if we gap up or push above 462, that's bullish. And that keeps the top of this this wedge in play. Okay, guys, that's what I have for the SPY today. Watch out for CPI. It's going to be exciting. There should be volatility. And here's Triple Q showing more follow through when it broke out 390. It broke out 394. It went as high as 395.79. Almost hit my 396 level. So for tomorrow, actually I had 395.5. Yeah, I had 395.5. It closed above that. My mistake. So as long as above 394 and 395.5, 397 is in play, and the next critical fib level is at 398.75, guys. That's my 1.236 Fibonacci extension level, okay? Above 394 and 395.5, we are bullish. Stay bullish on the triple Q. That next fib level is a target, and obviously above that would be very bullish, putting 400 and over in play. Okay, if we're gonna get bearish, like I said, wait for an exhaustion gap or breakdowns of levels. All right, 394, 392, 390, and 388 are support levels that I like for you guys to watch out for. If they break down, then we want to short. Okay, IWM got an inside daily candle here, 187.75 down to 184.86 is the chop range. Anything in between is chop. Be careful trading the chop. If we break above 187.75, that would be bullish, but we got a resistance here around 189. That's this white downtrend line that I have here for IWM, extending all the way back from, yeah, all-time high. I got to go all the way back. Holy moly. Yeah, all-time high to July 2023 high. So a breakout of that, or a test of that, I should say, is around 189-ish. So, yeah, if we break above 189, that's bullish with 191 in play, and then 193 is above that. Now, to be bearish, we got to break down 184.86. If it does, 183, 181, and 179-ish is in play based on my white trend line there. Tesla, blessed uncle with a beautiful trading today. Something that I'm watching out for on Tesla right now is this wedge here, guys. This wedge here. We closed right on the wedge today. Not quite a breakdown, but it doesn't look like a strong bounce either. Either way, below 239 tomorrow would be very bearish for Tesla. Watch out for a gap down. You guys know the breakaway gap, the bullish version of the breakaway gap. Well, there's another version of the breakaway gap, which is a gap down to the downside. Now, it's a little different from an exhaustion gap, because when an exhaustion gap is no structure. It's just, you know, an up move, but there's no structure in an exhaustion gap. With this, there is a structure. There is a structure, which is this rising wedge. So if we gap down below the rising wedge, that would be a breakaway gap, but a bearish one. Okay, so you can call it an exhaustion gap, but technically in this context is a little different. That's considered a bearish breakaway gap. So if that happens, bearish, overall bearish below 239 and 237.5. That was a decent buy zone. Below 237.5, we'll put 236 and 234.5. That is a Fibonacci level. So if 234.5 failed, that would be even more bearish with 231 in play. That was a buy zone. Look at all those wicks. Below 231, all those buying pressure is canceled and bears are fully in control, okay? I can only get bullish if we get above 241 and 242.5 to put 244, 245.5, and 247 in play. 247 was a sell zone, and it's also the 50% fib level. It needs to get above that to get bullish. All right. NVDA, we had a beautiful trade setup. NVDA it gave pretty much all its gain from Friday back. Holy moly, and some. But yeah, it closed relatively around where Friday's open was. All right. Overall, we have support at 465.5 and 464. 464 is a fib level. So if we break and close below 464, that would be a bearish false breakout setup. You know, on the daily chart, that would be bearish, and I would favor a lot more downside, 461, 459, and probably a lot lower than that. Okay, I can only get bullish on it at this point. As usual, we got to clear some resistant levels. 467.5, 470. And 472.6. 472.6 is the next fib level. We recapture those levels, that would be bullish, because today when we broke that down, it was extremely bearish and triggered a strong sell-off, guys. Apple, we had that megaphone pattern. Last week, it did break out the megaphone pattern. Today, it did gap down, but it's not quite an exhaustion gap. Look what happened. Looks like a regular gap. But look what happened. It gapped down and it dropped. And it looked like it back tested the 78.6 fib level and found buying pressure, okay? So at this point, we know there's a fib level there, and it's also a buy zone, okay? So below 191.2, that's when I would switch back to bearish on Apple, all right? Otherwise, resistance is at 193.5, and the megaphone pattern is at 195. Those levels clear again, we are probably likely heading back higher up to 197 and 198.2-ish. All right. Amazon just messing around here, but overall, it gapped down, but it's not a strong gap down. I'll trust this gap down more if it can break down 143.5. If it does, I'd be bearish on it with 142 and 140 in play. Below 140, bears are in control. If it wants to be bullish, it got to recapture 145 and 148. You got to clear 148 to trigger more upside and test the megaphone pattern, which is now at 151 plus. All right. AMD, holy moly, this is another reason, man. You don't want to call tops. You want to wait for confirmation, because look at that. Yes, we hit the top of the megaphone pattern, and it pulled back a little bit for a couple of points. Good for a decent level-to-level move, but overall, man, bears got squeezed out. Boom. And I actually alerted this in the group today, Trade Ideas Room. I talked about AMD. I put AMD grinding around the resistance of the expanding triangle pattern or megaphone pattern. Resistant line slopes up, and today the breakout level is at 130.5 to 131 zone. If cleared, 133 and 135 are in play. Pretty straightforward. And I put puts if 129 and 127 fail as support. As you guys can see, it didn't really break down support level, and it just cleared resistant level, and it went as high as my 135 resistant level. Okay, guys? So, yes, I have that previous pivot high around 132.8 to the 133 zone. All right, that is support. I would look to short if that level breaks down for a false breakout setup. To put 132 and 130 back in play. Below 130, I'd be bearish with well, today's low is around 128.4ish, so 5ish. So I'd use that as support with 127 below that. Okay, otherwise, overall bullish above 132.8. If we can clear 135 tomorrow, the squeeze continue. We're likely heading up higher, guys. Meta just fucking around. It closed above 326.2. Now closed back below it. That is a false breakout setup. Is this high from Friday a lower high? We'll see. But it has to stay below 326.2. And we had some buying pressure once again from 321. So that's a big level that needs to fail. Below 321 would put 319, 317, and the critical level at 315 in play. Below 315, then we're likely getting a lower low, maybe all the way down to 306.4ish. Play it level to level though. 315, I got 313, 311, and 309. But play it level to level, but we might get down to 306.4ish, okay? To be bullish, it just got to recapture 326.2 and 328 and clear this downtrend line. The downtrend line around 333. 333 clears, bottom is in my opinion. Netflix had the bulls excited today. It gapped up over that 455 level. That 455 level was a fib level. It retested as resistant. Couldn't break through, but it gapped up and went as high as 470.6-ish. But then just found selling pressures towards the end of the day. So remember, around that zone when we had that breakdown, it triggered this nice move to the downside. So that could be a back test of the breakout. The breakdown, excuse me, just to confirm the breakdown, which could lead to more lower lows. If that's the case, 455 needs to fail again tomorrow. All right, guys, I got 457 and 455 as support. These levels fail, look to short. We're likely heading down to the mid 440s, 445 around there. But yeah, if it can get recapture, 460.5, I got resistance at 465, 467.5, and of course that 470 level. Those levels recapture and actually give us a close on a daily chart, then I would be a little more bullish on Netflix. Google with the gap down, but intraday it avoided a breakdown of that 61.8 fib level at 134.3ish. If it can stay above, fill the gap at 135.6 and actually break above it, then that might be bullish with 138 back in play and maybe up to 140.5ish. All right, but overall, a breakdown of 134.3 and 132 would be bearish for Google, putting 129.5 and maybe a lower low down to 126.4ish in play, guys. And here is Microsoft still bouncing off my fib level, which happened to be July high. Still using that level as support, okay? Like I said, if we're going to get bearish, it got to break down 366.78 on the daily chart. It's got to be official on the daily chart to trigger more downside. We could get like a $9 move down to test this white trend line. The longer it takes to break it down, though, this white trend line slopes up. So keep that in mind. So it can't get bearish unless we break below 366.78. Otherwise, bullish if we recapture some level. I have resistance at 371.6, 373, and 374.5. Okay, those levels need to clear. If they clear, look to long. We are likely heading up higher for Microsoft. All right, here's Darkpool. Most of the order came in around 460.20, and the premium was at 2.2 billion. Okay, that's a good amount. You can use that as a support level if you wish. Add this filter for 100K premium for the option flow. Overall bearish for the SPY. The option flow just crashed on Uncle Chart. It's not working for some reason, so I apologize for that to you guys. But definitely, I hope, you know, with my price action analysis, I was able to assist you guys. Okay, so good luck for tomorrow, and manage those risks, people. Manage those risks. Peace.